All right, and welcome back to the forecast card. I've honestly tried to record this like 16 times. Either I always say something incorrect because I'm like trying to do too many things at once, or someone in my family ends up coming into the room and killing it. I'm trying to do this all in one take. I really don't want to have to edit the audio because it might be a pretty long video. But again, let's get into my bracket for the 2024-2025 March Madness. On paper, I think the one seeds this year are elite everywhere. I think they're almost infallible, at least Duke in Florida. Auburn has shown some signs of being a little unstable. Houston, similarly, a team that's been a bit inconsistent. But I do believe that the Final Four is going to be a little bit chalky this year because I do believe that these teams are just a little bit too talented, especially when it comes to playing at the elitist of level that they can, especially defensively. So let's get into the games. I like quite a few upsets here. Some not so obvious, some pretty obvious, and I'm also fading a lot of the public dogs that seem to be really common upsets. So, starting on game number one, I'm not going to talk about it. Auburn, they're going to crush Alabama State by like 50 points. Nothing to talk about. Louisville versus Creighton. Now, Louisville is a team I do believe should be much higher seeded, and I do think they're going to end up taking this win here over Creighton. When you look into the advanced stats, first, before you even look at advanced stats, this is going to be basically a home game for Louisville. It's going to be like 70 miles away from their house, like 700 miles away for Creighton. It's going to be a big disadvantage because this is a Louisville team that has played elitely on the road. So now we're getting them in a road spot with a home crowd. I think that's going to be awesome for them. Creighton is a team that has played much better at home, at least from beyond the arc. And this is a Louisville team that has proven that they could shut down the three. They completely locked down Clemson when they played. Clemson really struggled to find any offensive success. But yes, they ended up losing to Duke. But Duke, even without Flag, is an elite team on every side of the ball. A lot of people thought that uh, you know Flag was the entire team, but if you look at their roster, they're a lot more than Flag. One player is rarely enough, unless there's someone like LeBron James to be able to just completely dominate you through the tournament single handedly. So when I look at this matchup, Creighton, I think they're a team that shoots too many threes because they're such a good paint team. Best near paint defense or offense in all of college basketball, shooting almost 70% from the field, which is insane. That being said, I think Louisville is too good defensively. They're going to force a ton of turnovers. They won't give you a lot of chances on the offensive board. They won't let you get to the free throw line. They won't really give you that many turnovers to get off of. If Creighton's shots aren't falling, they're going to struggle, and I think Louisville is going to smother them defensively enough here, where they're going to really struggle on this neutral court. Game number three got Michigan versus UC San Diego. This is probably the most public upset in all of college basketball right now, which is UC San Diego over Michigan. I think Michigan rolls them. When you really look at these two teams under a lens, UC San Diego is still obviously they play in a mid-major, and that's typically the problem with mid-majors is that they are not proven against elite competition, and they are absolutely not proven. When you look at these two teams, who has UC San Diego played? Yes, they're 30-4, but they've beaten UC Irvine a few times. Probably their only impressive win. I guess you could argue that they have an impressive win here over Utah State, where they won by 2 on the road. But again, Utah State is a team that can get cold on any day. Only put up 73 points, which is extremely rare. You could argue because they played well defensively, but I think Utah State just had a bad game. They've already lost to UC Irvine. They lost to UC Riverside. They have not really beaten any team in the top 100 except for UC Irvine, and they lost to San Diego State. They lost to the Seattle team. I don't think they've truly had to step up in competition. When you look at their power ratings, they're a top 50 team everywhere except against top 25 teams, and Michigan is absolutely, especially to end off the year, a top 25 team. They looked really bad to end off the year. Don't get me wrong, but I think they've proven that they can step up. When you look at the way these two teams like to score, I think a lot of people love this spot here for UC San Diego because you have one team that turns the ball over a ton versus a team that is really good at forcing turnovers. But again, Michigan, if you look at their advanced stats, man, like a lot of their turnovers are lazy, like they're not even forced. Like they're unforced turnovers of them just making a bad pass or stepping on the line, uh, or not inbounding the ball fast enough for like just really stupid turnovers. And again, UC San Diego has really inflated their points off steals, having to play such terrible teams in the Big West all year. I think Michigan is going to clean up their game up. They looked insane against Wisconsin and defending the three. They made Tanji look like a middle school kid. He could not drain a point to save his life. And this is a UC San Diego team that relies heavily on their three to get any offense going. Michigan is a top 20 3-point defense, top 40 paint defense. I think they're going to prove why they're an elite team. And I think they got the monkey off their back with that, winning the tournament. Their team has gelled again. They have confidence that they could win games. And I think they have this significant coaching edge here with a coach that's made it pretty far in this tournament before. So give me Michigan here to avoid the upset. I don't think they're going to cover this game, but I do believe they're gonna win it. Yale versus Texas A&M. First upset, I'm taking Yale. Texas A&M, I don't believe them at all when they're not playing at home. They're a team that seems to look significantly shittier on the road. Obviously, this is a spot where Yale's going to have to travel much farther, but I like their matchup here. If you look at where Texas A&M likes to score, they're a team that really relies on, like, they're not really that good offensively. They rely heavily on offensive boards and points off steals. And this is a Yale team that's pretty big, and they're top 30 in limiting offensive board opportunities, top 60 in limiting turnovers. They're an elite mid-range defense, solid three-point, solid near-basket defense, pretty well-rounded defense in general. Against a Texas A&M team that doesn't really shoot the ball very well. They're also not a good free throw shooting team. So despite the fact that they get to the line a lot, they shoot it like under 70%. So I don't think that's going to be a big enough factor here. Yale, the reason why I like this upset, typically when I do like upsets, is because they're teams that can shoot three. And when you can shoot the three, if you can get hot, you can beat anyone. This is a Yale team that has a top 35% three-point percentage. They historically have shot a lot in the paint, a lot in the mid-range, more than they have from three. But I think they're going to adapt here. Texas A&M is a team that has struggled at defending the three all year. They're not even a top 100 three-point defense, despite being like a top 3 mid-range, top 7 basket defense, top 3 on the offensive glass. And they also don't foul very much, but they foul enough where I think Yale here is going to be able to balance out the free throw shooting, because they're a much better free throw shooting team by about 4 to 5% percentage points. So yeah, Yale's a better team on the road. Texas A&M, when not playing at home, is just a dog shit team, and I think they ended off the year on a terrible note. And despite how dog shit they've been on the road, they're also a team due for a lot of regression. Sure, they're 22-10, but shot quality suggests they should only be 16-16. I think they're a fraudulent 4 seed. I think Yale has a big chance here to upset them in this first round. North Carolina versus Ole Miss. Oh man, this is gonna be a good game, but I think North Carolina is the better team. When you look at these two teams, obviously North Carolina is running off so much momentum. They just had a solid, completely one-sided game against San Diego State. Completely embarrassed them, which I guess you could argue maybe they're just kind of set up here for a bit of a letdown spot here on Friday. But I think they're the slightly better team here than Ole Miss. Both these teams, rating-wise, are almost identical. I do think the SEC's arguably maybe a little bit harder than the ACC, but I do believe that North Carolina here is going to find success. They're a team that shoots a lot in the paint, almost 45% from the paint. This is a borderline top 100 near paint defense in Ole Miss. They shoot a lot of threes. This is not a great three-point defense. They foul a ton against a UNC team that's decent at shooting free throws. They're not good on the offensive glass, which is going to be a problem for them against a North Carolina team that converts the second chance opportunities at a really high clip, 28th best in college basketball. Offensively, North Carolina's going to find success. On the other side, Ole Miss, they are not that great offensively. They rely really heavily on their three-point and mid-range offense. They're going to struggle here against a UNC team that defends everything really well. And the game's going to basically come down to North Carolina's turnovers, and they really cleaned it up in that San Diego State game. I think North Carolina here is riding a shit ton of momentum. Everyone kind of doubted them. No one believes they should have been in this tournament. I think they had a terrible first part of the season, but they really started to gel when they had to kind of try to step up against that Duke team. Obviously, they still lost to Duke, but I think North Carolina is the better team. I think they're called Old Piss for a reason. This is technically a upset, but I think North Carolina is just a better team. So this is kind of a fake upset in my opinion. Iowa State versus Lipscomb. Lipscomb, they're a cute team, but Iowa State, they're battle tested, better coach. Yes, they have a bit of an injury bug, but I don't trust this Lipscomb team uh, as far as I can throw them. Um, if you look at a lot of the games, they've been like 20-point favorites and have historically won those games by like 2 points many times. They're too inconsistent for me to even consider backing them. I think Iowa State is the way more talented team here. And yeah, Lipscomb just not a team that I trust. They played way too easy of a schedule, and they're ranked 300th in college basketball when having to play a top 25 team. They cannot step up in competition in the Iowa State by like 30 points. We got to game number 4 or 6. We have Marquette versus New Mexico. I can see the angle for New Mexico. I fully believe that Marquette is a bit fraudulent, but I think again this is becoming too public of a dog for me. Marquette is still an elite team. Yes, they have had some struggles, but they're a solid offensive team. Top 25 in offensive efficiency. They're elite defensive team. They're going to really stuff up this New Mexico team in the paint. This is a team that relies really heavily on getting offensive boards, getting 4 points off turnovers. This is a Marquette team, right? 12th in limiting points off steals, top 40 on the offensive boards. I think New Mexico is going to get really stifled here, coming down from the Mountain West. I think the Big East is much tougher. Yes, New Mexico is going to get to the free throw line a lot, but they cannot shoot the free throw. Ranked 297th, they are one of the worst free throw shooting teams, especially in the Mountain West. And again, I still think Marquette is being a little bit disrespected here. I understand that they've had some really pathetic games this season, especially when stepping up in competition, but this is still an elite team that plays really good on the road. New Mexico finished off the year kind of looking a little bit shitty, but they have also really struggled in stepping up against competition. So I think New Mexico here is the better coach. They're more battle tested. Yeah, they just had a bad game against St. John's, but this is a St. John's team that just is playing with some next level energy, so can't really blame them. Yeah, give me Marquette here to avoid the upset. Michigan State versus Bryant. Just give me Michigan State. I understand that Bryant has that kid from St. Peter's that kind of led them to that infamous 2022 run, but this game is not going to be close. I think Bryant is not balanced of a team. Again, Bryant is a team that shoots. Again, if we're talking about that kid, like you're going to have to rely on the threes. But Bryant is a team that, again, Michigan State top 7 defense. They played a 22nd hardest schedule. Bryant has played the 331st hardest schedule. All of their stats are dog shit. Michigan State is going to roll them. I just don't believe in this Bryant team at all. I think they're good, but they're not good enough. I think Michigan State has way better talent. This is an upset I don't believe is going to happen. Bringing us on to the second round. This is going to be also a really good one. When I look at these two teams, I'm just going to take Auburn here. I think, again, this is a chalky bracket. I think Auburn is going to make it all the way to the Final Four. I'm not even going to talk about it. I think they're the most balanced team. They have always have the best player on the court with Broome. Louisville, we saw how much they struggled in having to step up in a little bit of competition against Duke. I think Auburn is just way too good. For basically 90% of the season, they were favorites to win it all until Duke kind of looked insane to end off the year. But this is Auburn's biggest chance, I think, to win this tournament. I'm not even gonna have to talk about their matchups. I just think Auburn is the more talented team here. Moving on to game number. We got Michigan versus Yale. Again, yes, Yale is a good team, but again, I think when you compare these two teams, I still think this is a Yale team that has the potential to upset this Michigan team. Defensively, Yale's going to really stop them. Basically everywhere that they want to shoot from. Another team that relies a lot on offensive boards near basket. Again, I think this is a spot where Yale is going to be able to stuff them. I know it's kind of insane to say, But no, I'm trying to sell myself on it. Give me Michigan here. Um, I do genuinely believe that if Yale, Michigan's defense is going to be too much for Yale. Their 3 point shooting is not going to be able to win them out of this battle. Originally, again, on my original bracket, I had UC San Diego, so I hadn't really looked at this Michigan versus Yale matchup too much. But the more I look into it, I think Michigan just has the better coaching, and this is where Yale's Cinderella story ends. North Carolina versus Iowa State. Again, give me North Carolina. I think this is where Iowa State's injury bug catches up to them. Two of their top five scorers still going to be out for this game. North Carolina is looking healthy. They're led by a senior. They have a good coach. And again, they're just riding way too much momentum here for me to truly believe that you can fade this team. Um, Again, I'm not necessarily too confident about where each of these teams are going to be playing a lot of these games. I haven't necessarily looked into which team is going to have the home edge in a lot of these spots, but yeah, let me just quickly look here if I can figure it out quickly. So don't mind my chair. I don't know what's going on, but it's the squeakiest chair ever. Yeah, both these teams, Iowa State obviously an elite team at, I guess, limiting you from doing much. They're a solid defensive team. But again, I think North Carolina's going to find success from three. They're a team that doesn't shoot any mid-range. That's what Iowa State defends the best. They're going to get to the free throw line a decent amount. They're going to have some success on the offensive glass. Iowa State, a team that I don't trust on the road. Much better team at home. They typically, again, they rely on second chance opportunities and points off steals. They're going to find some success, don't get me wrong. But again, I do think North Carolina has really cleaned up their play style. And I think Iowa State here, just because of their injury bug, I don't think they have the depth to keep up with North Carolina here. So give me North Carolina. Again, fake upset. I think that they're actually very close in ranking. This should only be like a 4 or 5 point game. Going on to the next game, we got Michigan State versus Marquette. Give me Michigan State. I also do agree that this is a Michigan State Marquette team that is fraudulent. I just think that New Mexico is equally as fraudulent. So I know a lot of people have New Mexico winning that game outright early on. Again, I just don't see it. I think they're a team that relies way too heavily on very specific scoring that's not from actually shooting the ball in the hoop in a 5-on-5. They kind of rely on offensive boards, whatnot. That's the one thing that Marquette is not fraudulent at. So next we got North Carolina versus Michigan State. Man, this Michigan State team, they're weird, right? Like they're a team that relies really heavily on one type of scoring. But again, I think this is going to be a tough matchup here. North Carolina really relied on that 3-point game to win over San Diego State. Michigan State, the best 3-point defense in college basketball. They hold teams to 27% from 3-point. They have a much better record quality, harder schedule. They're definitely the more consistent team. North Carolina are going to rely heavily on shooting in the paint and from three. Michigan State, top 30 basket defense, best 3-point shooting defense. They're elite on the offensive glass. They don't turn the ball over too much. I think it's going to be really tough here for North Carolina to score. On the other side, Michigan State, I think they're going to find success on the offensive glass. They're going to get to the line a lot. One of the best free throw shooting teams in college basketball. Going to find success in the paint. I think this is where North Carolina's dream run ends here, and Michigan State moves on to play Auburn. And then here, again, I think Auburn wins. I think this is just way too much of a balanced Auburn team. Michigan State, very one-dimensional. They can only score basically one way, which is, in the paint. They're a really bad 3-point shooting team, really bad mid-range shooting team. But when you match up against a team like Auburn that can defend everything at an elite level, it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a close game, don't get me wrong, but Auburn is a top 10 basket defense, elite 3-point defense. The one thing that Auburn does really struggle with is fouling. And Michigan State, if they can get to the line a lot, they're going to find success. But I think Auburn's balanced offense is going to be too much here. And Michigan State, a team that I don't love. Again, I think it's possible here that Auburn is upset in this matchup. They've been a little bit shaky, but man, the more I look at this, I'm starting to maybe believe that Michigan State has the ability here because Broome has been shaky. But again, I think the defense is going to be too much. If Michigan State can't get to the line, I think Auburn is going to get more of the whistle. They have the more athletic players. Michigan State kind of, I'm not going to say they're a chunky team, but they're not. They don't look as athletic as Auburn does. And typically, I think that leads to getting a lot more free throws. So I think both teams are going to get to the line a lot. I think Michigan State is going to choke under the pressure of this Auburn team. So maybe Auburn to move on and win the South. That being said, I could see a lot of arguments for Michigan State here. But again, when I've watched them play, they haven't really showed me enough versatility in their offense. And if Auburn has time to plan, I think they can completely stifle it, especially if they're not fouling very much. So kind of chalky, but I do have Auburn coming out of the South. Now let's move on to the West. All right, now moving on to the West, we have Florida versus Norfolk. As you can see, I already have Florida making it all the way to the Final Four. I think they're the best team out of the West, the number one team against top 25 teams. I think they're the most balanced team in all of college basketball, and I love them to come out of this as the favorite to win the whole championship. Moving on, we have UConn versus Oklahoma. This is an interesting one. Oklahoma played much better down the stretch. They're an elite free throw shooting team against a UConn team that has a problem with fouls. And I can fully understand why anyone would want to be on this Oklahoma team, given how well they played down the stretch. But UConn, they're an elite team in the paint. I think they're going to find a lot of success against an Oklahoma team that hasn't defended the paint very well. UConn is also an elite team on the offensive glass. Oklahoma's also very good at defending the glass, but I think UConn's going to have a lot of success there. Oklahoma's a big team, but UConn is just strong. Coaching advantage, it's got to go to UConn. Back-to-back champs. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to get bounced in the first round. That being said, because of the fact that they are back-to-back champs, they're probably going to get a lot of the square bets on every single bracket on people that don't watch the sport. Obviously, Oklahoma coming out of the SEC, a tough conference this year. Big East hasn't been nearly as competitive as it used to be in the past. Oklahoma, they're a team that likes to shoot in the paint. It likes to shoot threes. UConn, a very elite paint defense. Number 6 in college basketball. Keep teams to under 50% from in the paint. They're elite on the boards as well. They do turn the ball over a little bit. They will foul you, and they're not that great at defending the three. Oklahoma takes about 40% of their shots from beyond the arc. So there are some things to like about Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong. That being said, I just can't fade this UConn team. Obviously, I'm not saying they've been the better team. I think they've by far actually been the worst team than Oklahoma down the stretch. But this Oklahoma team, they have struggled against top 25 teams. They've been elite against other teams, but UConn is just within the top 25. They play up to competition. They've been a really good team. They play the best against these top 50 teams. And they're a really good team on the road. Oklahoma has been a team that has kind of relied on their home court to get a lot of their big wins. And now we're getting them on the road here. Or I think it's going to be a bit of a tough matchup. This is, of course, going to be more of a home game for UConn. I think they're going to have way more fans here. I don't think Oklahoma's really been known to be much of a basketball school lately in the last few years. And UConn obviously has probably built a lot of massive fans from their elite play over the last 2 years. They're going to be only 500 miles from home compared to Oklahoma. That's going to be over 1,000 miles. I think this is going to be a 70-30, 80-20 split for the crowd being on UConn, which I think is going to have given a big edge here to UConn. Again, Sam Godwin going to be hurt here for Oklahoma. Not necessarily sure if he's not going to play, but it might be a significant blow in terms of bench generation. I don't know. I think UConn has the experience here. Oklahoma, they've kind of been a bit of a miracle team. Again, they have really not been that good, especially on the road. They played good. They beat Missouri, Texas, Georgia to end off their season. But before that, they had lost like 7 of their last 8. UConn won 5 of their last 6, just losing to Creighton in the tournament. But they finished off on a high note. They've had some big wins over some big teams, especially being on the road. I think UConn here matches up well. I think both. It's going to come down to whether or not Oklahoma can hit their free throws and threes, but I think UConn has a bit more talent down low, and they've been the better team for the entire year, not just the end of the stretch. So Give me UConn to advance here against Oklahoma to play Florida, where they will lose. Heading on to the next round, we got Memphis versus Colorado State. Fully understand why people would like Memphis here, but again, they're such a bullshit team. I really don't trust them in any capacity, and because of that, I'm going to take the hot ass Colorado State team. If you look at the last 10 in terms of trapezoid play, Colorado State has been playing at an elite level. Before, they kind of relied heavily on playing at home, and that's kind of why I wouldn't have wanted to back them early on. But they have been a really good team coming out of the Mountain West. Memphis, coming out of the American, obviously really, really shitty division. They're a very consistent team, and they've been a pretty solid team all year. But, God, the momentum coming in from Colorado State is unmatched. They're going to find a lot of success. You can't even look at their season-long stats because they've been overperforming to end off the year. But they're going to find a lot of success from three, a lot of success in the paint. Memphis is a team that shoots mid-range and near basket shots. They're probably going to find some success in the paint. But again, Colorado State's still a decent team on their own boards, decent team at not turning the ball over. They don't foul too much. And Colorado State is just a way, way better free throw shooting team. 77% to 69%, 8% difference for Colorado State. In a tight game like this that I think is going to be a very, very defensive game to some degree, I think the free throws are going to be something you want to have in your back pocket. Furthermore, I guess when you look more into, how these two teams have performed in terms of, uniqueness of quality of the play they've had to play against, I don't know, man. Colorado State has looked really good at the end of the year. Memphis, many people probably agree they look like shit. Yes, they've won 8 games in a row, but they haven't really played anyone good. They played UAB twice, but in terms of top 100 teams, they've only played UAB 3 times. They played Mississippi. They had a good win. They lost to Mississippi State at home. They lost to Arkansas State at home. Louisiana Tech. They beat Clemson. They beat Virginia. Sure, they have some big wins under the belt. They beat UConn. They beat Michigan State. They beat Missouri. But this team, I just don't trust them. I really don't. I think Colorado State here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wins in a row, including wins over Utah State, Boise State, Nevada. They have wins over San Diego State, wins over Boise again, wins over Nevada. Yeah, I think this is just going to be a classic spot of Memphis is due for a shit ton of regression. And I think this is kind of where they're going to be exposed a little bit based off kind of the quality of teams they've had to play down the stretch, where I think they've looked a lot worse. Colorado State due for only a little bit of regression. Yeah, fuck it. I think this is a spot where Colorado State can upset Memphis. I think they have the more talented team. They deserve to be here. In terms of where these two teams are playing, let me double check that. Yeah, this is going to be a crazy travel spot for Memphis, over 2,000 miles. Colorado State only 900 miles away from home. Yeah, I think this is going to be a weird game for Memphis. Maryland versus Grand Canyon. I just think Maryland is the more talented squad here. I think they're going to cruise past Grand Canyon. If you look at what these two teams do, Maryland is just a nightmare matchup for them. Grand Canyon beats up on bad teams, but they've never really been able to handle step-ups in competition. Maryland is an elite three-point team. Grand Canyon cannot defend the three-pointer. Maryland's going to get to the line a ton. They're going to get a ton of points off steals. They're going to dominate the boards. And Grand Canyon, a team that relies on scoring in the paint, is going to really be blocked off here against a top 25 defense everywhere for Maryland. They don't foul you. You won't get to the line. They're good on the offensive board. They don't turn the ball over. Maryland is a very well-rounded team that I think has the ability to make it pretty far if, in fact, they didn't have to play against Florida, who I think is going to crush them. Moving on to Missouri versus Drake. Another upset here. I really like Drake. This is, again, I think more of a public spot, a public upset for good reason. Obviously, this is a pretty solid team in Missouri, at least a very solid offensive team. But I think Drake matches up decently well against them. Drake has really handled steps up in competition this year. If you look at where Missouri likes to score, They're a team that likes to shoot a lot of threes and near basket shots. Drake, an elite 3 point defense, top 25 in college basketball. Missouri's going to probably find a lot of success, if we're being honest, from in the paint. They're top 15 paint defense or offense against a Drake team that's not even the top 300 in defending the paint. But in terms of points off steals, something that Missouri relies on, Drake does not turn the ball over a lot. They're pretty solid on the glass. Missouri gets a lot of fouls, but they're not very good at shooting the free throw. And they're just way too inconsistent of a team. You have no idea what you're going to get for them. And I think because of the pressure, they're going to want to shoot up threes, especially considering they're going to be big favorites in this game. But I don't love it. If you look at Drake, their team likes to shoot a lot in the paint. They're probably going to have some problems against Missouri in the paint, but I think they're going to still find success offensively. They have some talented guys. They're going to dominate the offensive glass against a Missouri team that has struggled there. They're going to get to the free throw line a lot. And the biggest thing is Drake is really good on the road. Obviously, this is still a elite Missouri team, but they're due for a ton of regression. Drake's due for a bit of positive regression. So I think we're getting a Missouri team that's kind of a little bit overrated, especially on the defensive end. If they're not scoring, I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up with Drake. In terms of power ratings, Missouri, decent road team, but Drake really steps up on the road. They're a really good neutral road team this year. Number one neutral team from their conference, which I think is going to be a big benefit to them. Obviously, schedule strength is different, but Drake played really good down the stretch. Missouri started to kind of look a little bit worse to end off the season. And this is a Drake team that, on paper has kind of struggled a little bit in stepping up to competition, but this is a Missouri team I think they match up decently well against. Missouri is really good against like elite teams, but they typically seem to struggle against competition that they expect to dominate. I do really like the spot here. Mark Mitchell likely going to be out for Missouri. He's probable now, but he's still dealing with a knee injury, so I don't think he's going to be playing full minutes. Not in full momentum, confidence play. I think that's going to be the difference here. Mark is a really important piece to their team. Without him, I think Drake can figure out a way to upset them. So I'm going to take Drake here versus Missouri. Not my favorite upset, but I think a necessary upset that I think has good merits. Texas Tech, probably one of my favorite teams. Unfortunately, I think they're going to, again, lose to Florida, but they are a really, really good team. They're extremely balanced on both sides of the floor. I think they're going to completely obliterate Drake. They're going to have no problems beating UNC Wilmington. I understand there's some people that believe that UNC Wilmington could upset Texas Tech. I don't see it. UNC Wilmington has played nobody this year, and they have not had to prove themselves. Texas Tech, elite offense, elite defense, really talented squad coming out of the Big 12. I love the ideas of these kind of teams, but I think UNCW is going to hit a brick wall and not be able to score anything. Kansas versus Arkansas. Not too much to this one. I just think Arkansas still is going to be missing two of their lead scorers. As far as I know, neither of them are still going to be playing in this game, and because of that, Kansas, a very experienced team in the postseason, again hold their record for making it to the dance. Really good coaching, elite defense, decent offense. I think is going to find a little bit of success in the mid range. I think they're just a solid team that I think Arkansas, without their two lead scorers, are going to struggle here. Kansas has played basically one of the hardest schedules in all of college basketball. They played really well down the stretch. I don't really love this Kansas team by any stretch, but I do think they're going to make it at least past Arkansas. Omaha, I don't buy it. This is a St. John's team that I don't know what they do in the final minutes, but this team can close out games. The games always look close to start them off, and then they just completely dominate the final 10 minutes of games. They lock in. Their offense is really starting to click. They've been a team that has not been a good offensive team at all this year. They've kind of been known to just be an elite offensive defensive team, so forcing turnovers, getting offensive boards, but the balls are going on the hoop now without needing to get offensive glass. Their offense is really starting to click, and that's going to be a really big problem. St. John's, obviously, we've got the Rick Pitino. I think everyone's kind of riding this old farts, legacy here. He's 72 years old, but man, he can motivate a team. The St. John's team is probably everyone's kind of Cinderella that probably has a chance to make it really far in this tournament, if not win over any of these other number one seeds. But I think Kansas is going to really struggle in this matchup. I think St. John's is a little bit too good for them, and they're going to fall to St. John's. Then moving on to the next round, obviously I like Texas Tech here over St. John's. I think it's going to be a really, really competitive game. Don't get me wrong. But Texas Tech, I just think they're way too talented. Again, St. John's offense has been locking in, but it's just not consistent enough for me. And this is a Texas Tech team that has been really, 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 really good on both sides of the ball. I don't really know if anyone truly believed that they were going to be at the level that they've been playing at. But man, yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I think Texas Tech ends up pulling this away down the stretch. Maybe like a 75-70 type of game. But I just think on the offensive boards is where Texas Tech is going to survive. They're going to find a lot of success from three. St. John's team may find a little success on the offensive glass, but not nearly as much against this Texas Tech team that really defends where the St. John's likes to score from decently well. So I think it's going to be a good game, but it's going to come down to free throws, and I think St. John's terrible free throw shooting is going to be their demise and why they don't actually advance into the Final Four this year. And moving on, not going to go into too much. I just think, again, Florida is the team to beat. They are the most balanced team in all of college basketball to me. I think they beat Texas Tech rather convincingly. Coming out of the SEC, they have been a complete monster with some of the most impressive wins over Auburn and other elite programs. They're an elite three-point shooting team, elite mid-range team, elite paint team. They have a decent free throw shooting. They force enough turnovers. They get some offensive boards. I think they're going to completely crush this Texas Tech team, especially in the paint, where Texas Tech has kind of failed to defend really well this year. I think Texas Tech, Florida's going to get to the line a ton where they're not that great of a free throw shooting team, but good enough, I think, to get it done here. Yeah, I just love Florida. You'll probably see me pick Florida a couple more times in this bracket. Anyway, that's my bracket for the West. Let's move on to the East. All right, moving on to the East, we have Duke, which is starting to really look like it's going to be Mount St. Mary's. They're up 13 with 10 minutes left in this game. Either way, Duke, best team in college basketball, especially when healthy. Nobody really knows whether or not Cooper Flagg is going to be healthy for this tournament. I think I'm expecting him to play maybe limited minutes to start, see how his ankle looks, but Duke still looks elite even without him. But I think the injury concern is kind of why a lot of people are kind of worried about making them win the whole thing. I do have some futures on Duke, but the injury does kind of scare me a lot. He is clearly a very important piece to this Duke team and why they've been so good. That being said, I still have Duke making it all the way to the Final Four. Now we got Mississippi State versus Baylor. These are some good teams. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to take what I would imagine. It's basically not even a dog. Yes, they're a lower seed, but these teams are basically pick 'em. I think Baylor's favored on the markets now. I think Baylor has way too many elite guards. They have a fantasy pick and Edgecombe. They have two elite other guards that are both seniors. I think it's going to be a little bit too much here from Mississippi State, a team that relies, in my opinion, a little bit too much on forcing those turnovers. And if Baylor does not turn the ball over a lot, I don't think Mississippi State's going to find a lot of success. If you look at these two teams, Baylor, they like to shoot quite a lot of threes and mid-range shots. Mississippi State really struggles defending the three, ranked 232 in defense. Again, Baylor, top 75 free throw shooting team. Mississippi State, not even in the top 200. That's going to be a big difference here. Baylor, really good at forcing turnovers and getting offensive boards. Mississippi State, good at defending both of those. Top 50 on the glass, top 25 in points off steals. That being said, I still think they're going to get quite a few. But if you look at this on the other side here, Mississippi State, their team, top 10 in points off steals. Baylor is ranked number 1 in limiting. They do not turn the ball over at a super elite level. I think that's going to be a really big problem here for Mississippi State's scoring ability. Mississippi State, they shoot quite a lot in the paint. They're going to have some advantage there. Baylor is a bit smaller of a team. They're much better at perimeter defense than they are in the paint, which might be a problem. So I expect Mississippi State is going to be more of an in-paint team, offensive board, score, try to get the board off, get fouled, shoot some free throws. But again, I think their free throw shooting is not good enough here. I think Baylor is a slightly better defensive team. Um, and yeah, I think Baylor is kind of ending off their season on a high note, while Mississippi State kind of regressed to look a little more questionable than they have over the season. If you look a little bit more into this game, this is going to be a game on Friday. Considered to be probably one of the more exciting games to watch. But if you look at the power ratings, Baylor, one of the best neutral teams this year, top 25. Mississippi State's also played well on the neutral rating, but strength of schedule wise, Baylor's played a much harder schedule. They finished off the year as like a top 25 team. Mississippi State kind of regressed a bit to end off the year, being like borderline top 35, top 40. And again, this is a Mississippi State team that plays really good against every competition, but they really struggle against elite players, falling outside the top 50 when playing against top 25 teams. Meanwhile, Baylor against these middle of the pack, top 25, top 50 teams like Mississippi State, they play at an elite level. So I think we're going to get Baylor here. Obviously, they're going to be traveling. I still think they're going to be a 50-50 fan base split during both of these games. I don't fully get it. I think these two teams, Mississippi State beat them in 2018. I think it's the same coach, so they're going to be a little bit revengeful here for this game. But again, I just think the guard play for Baylor is just too much talent, and I think they have a very, very high ceiling that can absolutely beat this Mississippi State team. Moving on to game number 3, we have Liberty versus Oregon. I'm taking Liberty. I have never really felt too high on this Oregon team. I fully understand that Oregon is a high ceiling team as well, but I don't think that they're that much better than Liberty. Liberty has been elite in the Conference USA. Obviously hasn't played that elite of competition, but Oregon, a team that relies really heavily on getting offensive boards and points off steals. Liberty's really good, top 50 in points off steals, top 75 in limiting second chance opportunities. Oregon shoots a decent chunk of threes against a Liberty team that's elite at defending the three. I think Oregon will find some success in the paint, but they're not going to get a lot of free throws against a Liberty team that's top 25 and limiting fouls. On the other side, Liberty, a team that shoots a ton of threes. They're going to find some success from three, the third best three-point percentage in all of college basketball. They have two smaller guards, but they are elite shooters. And if Oregon can't stop them, they're going to have some problems. The biggest problem with Liberty is they don't really do anything except for shoot threes and shoot in the paint. But in my opinion, that is the recipe for upsets. I think their defense is kind of what carries them through games. And if they can get hot from three, they can keep this game close enough where I think it comes down to the wire. Now, I fully understand that this is a weird upset because Oregon they've been a good team, but they haven't been a bad team this year. But when you really dive into the numbers, I have this projected as a 2-point win for Oregon, which is kind of a really close projection when you consider the fact that these two teams are both, I guess, pretty solid in their own right. But I guess Oregon has obviously played a much harder schedule, but sorry, I'm just trying to pull up. I'm struggling to find this game here. Oregon. Excuse this pause. I'm just searching. I'm not really sure, when do these two teams play? Oh, there we go. Liberty has been a much better team on the road than they have been at home this year. Last 5 ratings, they've been almost like a top 40 team. Oregon being roughly a top 20, top 25 team. You could argue that this Liberty team hasn't really had to play that elite of competition. But when they have stepped up in competition, they beat McNeese, they beat Kansas State. That's really the only top 100 teams they've had to play this year. So I do like their odds to ride this momentum coming off the big win over Jacksonville State, winning the conference tournament. Now they get to play Oregon, who's coming off a tough loss against Michigan State. Obviously, Oregon is going to have a home court to some degree, only 250 miles away. Liberty's going to have to travel over 2,000 miles, but I really love this stat, which is that Liberty, when they're playing over 1,500 miles away, they've won their last 4 games against UTEP, McNeese, New Mexico State, and Seattle. So They are clearly a team that kind of likes the challenge of playing on a different time zone, and I think they're going to show uh, that this conference has some players. So give me Liberty to beat Oregon outright. Moving on, Akron. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a believer in this Akron team. I think they're elite in their conference, but I think Arizona is just way too scary for them. Akron is not a good defensive team, and they played one of the easiest schedules in college basketball. Uh, this is not a likely upset here for me. Arizona is going to beat them by 20, 25 points. BYU versus VCU. I'm not buying the VCU hype. I understand this is a very public dog. You look at the trapezoid, VCU's been kind of hovering around it. I really don't buy it, man. Like, I've watched them play. They just do not pass my eye test. Yes, they have the ability to completely shut down offenses. They're an elite defense. But, yeah, if you look at their power ratings, they're an elite team against every other team. But once they play a top 25 team, they fall outside of the top 100. This is a BYU team that, yes, kind of got humbled a little bit against Houston. You could argue VCU's like a mini Houston. I don't think you can. I think BYU is going to be more rested for this game. I think came off an insane win streak. Obviously, they got shut down by Houston, but they just shot really, really badly that game against a really, really good Houston defense. But I love this team, this BYU team. I think they show up. They're going to have one player out, but not really that important of a player. BYU is going to be only 300 miles from home. They're going to have a home game, basically. They've won four of their four games when playing this close to home. Meanwhile, VCU has lost two of their last four when traveling, including losses to worse teams like St. Louis and New Mexico. So I don't buy this VCU upset. I think they're a good defensive team, but I think BYU has way too much talent, way too many good shooters. Wisconsin, Montana, just give me Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's one of the best teams coming out of the East. Not really much to say there. Montana, they're a scrappy team, but I don't think they're going to have any way to defend, especially a Talenji team coming off an incredibly pathetic performance that I think they're going to want to he's going to want to avenge, especially against a defense that's not going to have nearly as much success. So Wisconsin by like 30 points. I don't see Montana winning that one. St. Mary's, Vanderbilt. Going to be a great game, but I think St. Mary's is way too balanced of a team. They smother you defensively. I've never really been a big fan of this Vanderbilt team. But obviously they played a tougher schedule, but St. Mary's is an elite team that's going to completely suffocate you on offense. Vanderbilt is a team that likes to shoot a lot in the paint, shoot some threes. St. Mary's top 10 in both of those defenses. Vanderbilt number 1 in offensive boards. Guess what St. Mary's is? The number 1 team at limiting offensive boards. So this is a nightmare matchup for Vanderbilt. St. Mary's is one of the best teams on the road. Vanderbilt relies heavily on their home advantage. The one thing that Vandy has going for them is they have a much better free throw shooting team, but SMC doesn't really foul a lot. So I think this is going to be an extremely slow-paced St. Mary's team that just completely gruels you out. And Vanderbilt cannot defend the three. They can't defend the mid-range. They're not as good on the boards. So I think St. Mary's is going to slowly crawl away with this win. It's going to be an extremely low-scoring game. Give me St. Mary's like 68 to Vanderbilt like 62 or something. I think it's going to be an under 130 total game. So, yeah, give me St. Mary's. I actually love this spot for them. Really, really bad matchup for Vanderbilt. I do feel for them in the seeding process. And Robert Morris, a lot of people are on them as a potential upset pick. I don't buy it, man. Alabama's talented. They have some of the best guards. They're one of the best offenses. Robert Morris is a decent offense, but they cannot defend. And they played arguably one of the easiest schedules of any team playing in this tournament. Alabama wins by 50. Then we have Alabama versus St. Mary's. This is going to be a good game. This is going to be a really fast-paced, good offense versus a slow-paced, strong defense game. I can't wait to watch this one. I think it's going to be the best game of the tournament, and I'm really hoping this happens. But as always, I think defense always comes out ahead. I think St. Mary's here is going to win over Alabama. Bama, an elite team, but I think they're going to be really uncomfortable the way that St. Mary's plays. They're going to start forcing weird plays, going to try to figure out how to do anything. But St. Mary's, man, I love this team. I think they're one of my favorite to watch, and I think they're going to make this Alabama team miserable. BYU, Wisconsin. Again, BYU, this is kind of where I think they meet their match here. BYU, an elite offensive team, not as good defensively. I think Wisconsin, despite being slightly worse offensively, is a bit more balanced of a squad. I do think this is Tanji's tournament to lose. I think this is gonna be a close game. I think Wisconsin wins it by 2 or 3 points, but they're such a good road team. I think they're going to study that Houston game, figure out how they completely shut down the BYU offense, and that's going to be a problem for them. You could argue the same thing, but for how Wisconsin got shut down by Michigan, but I think that Wisconsin has the defensive tools that BYU simply does not. I think Wisconsin, Tanji, they're going to score really easily from the three. They're going to find a lot of success in the mid range. They're going to get to the free throw line a decent amount against a BYU team that cannot shoot the free throw. It's like a 15% disparity. That's going to be a problem for BYU, where points are typically come at a premium in these kind of matchups. BYU, a team that likes to take, got a lot of every shot, but mostly threes. Wisconsin, much better three-point defense. They're elite mid-range defense. They don't give up anything else. So if BYU shots aren't falling like that Houston game, they don't really get any second looks. So I think Wisconsin pulls through and wins that game, where unfortunately they meet Duke, and I think they meet their demise here in the final Elite Eight, where they fall to Duke, who ends up beating them by like 6 or 7 points here, even if Flight doesn't play. All right, let's move on to the Midwest. All right, to start us off, again, I think the one seeds are just too good. SIUE has played nobody. They're going to get crushed. Houston is way too good of a defensive team. I think Houston wins this game by 50 points. Gonzaga, Georgia, probably, in my opinion, the best game that's going to come out of the Midwest. Two very, very good teams, especially down the stretch. Gonzaga kind of looked really, really bad to start off the year. But I think Gonzaga here is going to pull away with this win. They played a tougher schedule here, and I think the biggest problem here for this Georgia team is their offense. Georgia, top 30 offense, top 30 defense. Gonzaga, top 10 offense, top 20 defense. On paper, Gonzaga is just a better team. Been basically a top 10 team all year. And Georgia on the road has been really bad. They've been an elite home team, but I think this is going to be a really tough matchup for them. Gonzaga, they shoot kind of everything pretty evenly, around 30%. Georgia, a good defense, top 35 everywhere. But I think they turn the ball over a little bit too much. Gonzaga's going to find success there. Gonzaga, again, top 5 free throw shooting team. Georgia, not even barely a top 200 free throw shooting team. I think that's going to be a big difference in this game, where two of these defenses are elite. On the offensive glass, I think Gonzaga's going to find a little bit of success, not as much as the other side, where I think Georgia's going to find a lot of success on the offensive boards. But Gonzaga does not foul a lot. They're top 23-point defense. They're top 50 mid-range defense, top 50 in near basket defense. I think this is going to be a really close game, but I genuinely do believe that it's going to come down to Gonzaga's making a lot more free throws. Free throws are such a big deal in these tournament games, and I think that's going to be a big problem for them. Gonzaga, one of the few elite teams that are actually due for positive regression. They've started to kind of hack into it, playing much better down the stretch, but they're still underrated to where they should be. And Georgia, fortunately, a team due for a decent amount of negative regression. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Georgia. If you look at them down the stretch, they were very good. Don't get me wrong. They had some really, really big wins against, they beat Florida, which is one of the only teams to beat Florida. They beat Texas, they beat Vanderbilt. But before that, they had lost like 9 of their last 11. I think that was just a bad spot for Florida in that game. Other than that, they have really no impressive wins this year. They did beat Kentucky, but again, at home. In terms of road games, their most impressive win on the road has been, literally the most impressive road win is against Texas. And their one neutral game they had this year, they lost. At least the one early on. So Gonzaga, their team that just came off of 3 solid wins on neutral court. They're going to be really, really motivated for this game. They finally beat St. Mary's, got that monkey off their back. Obviously, they haven't played that many elite teams, but they have some losses to Kentucky, to UConn. But they beat Indiana, beat San Diego State, crushed Baylor, beat Arizona State, beat San Francisco twice, beat St. Mary's twice. I guess only once. Sorry. Um, you know, I don't know. I like this team a lot, and I think they match up really well here. I think Georgia is just a team that when they hit the road, they suck. Um, it's going to be a pretty far game for both of these teams. And I don't think there's going to be a significant home advantage for either team. Um, both teams are pretty much injury free, so I don't think there's going to be any edge to look at there. But if you look at the power ratings, again, on the neutral court, Gonzaga's been a top 20 team, top 10 on the road. Georgia, top 25 at home, but when they hit the road, they fall outside the top 50. To finish off the year, they were a top 20 team. Gonzaga, a top 15 team. And the biggest thing is Gonzaga is a top 7 team against top 25 teams, while Georgia's basically a top 50 team against elite teams. So I think Gonzaga is just going to be too much of a step up for this Georgia team. I think Gonzaga is going to pull ahead here and win this game. Then we have Clemson versus McNeese. I think McNeese is getting way too much love, and again, when you look at the way that they play up to competition, they kind of stink. This Clemson team, yeah, they just had a rough end to their tournament, but Clemson is an elite team. They're the 5th best team against top 25 teams in the country, and Georgia, McNeese, they have played against top 25 teams well. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't believe in them, man. Who have they even had to play? They played Mississippi State. They lost by 3. They played Santa Clara, lost by 7. Played Liberty, lost by 4. They beat North Texas. They lost to Alabama. Like, they haven't had any wins over any big teams. Where Clemson's been a team, yeah, they'd had a tough loss to Louisville where they couldn't score for like half the game. But they still have a lot of elite wins over SMU. They're one of the only teams to beat Duke. They beat Pittsburgh on the road, which is impressive. Wins over Stanford, wins over Penn State, over San Francisco. I think they're just a way better team here. And if you look at the matchup, I think Clemson wins this game by like double digits. I think it's close. But again, McNeese coming out of the Southland has not played very many good teams. Clemson's going to have a lot of success on the offensive boards, going to have a lot of success from 3 on the mid-range. They're the way better free throw shooting team. McNeese rely heavily on scoring in the paint, and this is a Clemson team, top 25 at paint defense. Really, I think the only spot where McNeese might find a little bit of success is on the offensive boards, but they're not a good free throw shooting team. I think Clemson wins this game pretty handedly. Purdue High Point. I think High Point's a team that everyone's looking at like, oh, they're going to upset. I don't see it. I think they have all the momentum, but they have played the 300th easiest schedule in college basketball. I think their stats are super inflated. Purdue has played the 5th hardest schedule, the best best shooting guard in all of college basketball, in my opinion. I think they roll with the significant coaching edge. Gonzaga versus Houston. Gonna be a good game, but again, I think this is maybe where Houston falls. I actually have Gonzaga advancing in my model. On these really close games, I basically fully concede my opinion to what the model shows me. I don't think I can make any significant reads, but I think Gonzaga has a good matchup here against Houston. And I think it's going to be a really competitive game. Probably one of the best games all year, the one that I think has the closest to a true 50-50 split. So I think Houston gets upset early on against Gonzaga. Gonzaga versus Clemson Purdue. I think this Purdue team is scrappy, and I think they end up beating Clemson. I think they have too much offensive talent, and they're not that great of a defensive team, but I think they're going to show up to the moment with a better coach and make it this far, where unfortunately they will fall to Gonzaga. My model has Gonzaga win this game by 8. I think they go all the way to the Final Four. On the other side of the bracket, we have Illinois versus Texas Xavier. I don't like this Illinois team. I think either team they play, Texas crushes. I think Xavier has a better chance against Illinois, and I do personally have Xavier winning this game. So if Xavier makes it, I really like this. Otherwise, I think it's more of a 50-50 split. But I think Xavier has a good matchup against Illinois, especially in size. I don't like this Illinois team. I don't trust them. That could be what kills me here. But Kentucky versus Troy. Troy's a cute team. I have them making it past in a few of my brackets, but this Kentucky is just too good offensively, and I don't know if Troy's going to be able to stop them. And then Xavier versus Kentucky. Again, if it's Xavier, I think they lose. I think they lose either way. I think Kentucky has too much talent. I think it gets a little bit chalky going into the Elite Eight here. I think they just have way too many talented kids on that team. Better coach. And we got Tennessee Wofford. It's going to be Tennessee. Don't see an upset coming out there. UCLA versus Utah State. Give me Utah State, man. This UCLA team, they obviously had a really rough early game stretch. I think this is one of those upsets where Utah State, both these teams, um, I guess Utah State specifically, a really bad defensive team. But I think Utah State is going to find a lot of success here on the offensive glass. They're going to force a lot more turnovers. They're going to dominate the paint, shoot a lot of threes. UCLA really is not that good of a defensive team other than in the mid range. Yeah, I think both teams are going to have a lot of success offensively, but I like Utah State here out of the Mountain West. I've never fully liked this UCLA team. I think they're going to have some mental problems against Utah State here, who's going to push the pace, and I think they're just a more talented squad. And then Utah State versus Tennessee. I have Tennessee winning that matchup. I think they're too elite of a defensive team. Same here. I think Tennessee can completely shut down Kentucky's offense, and I don't think their defense is good enough to stop. Obviously, Tennessee is not a good offensive team by any stretch, but I think Ziegler and company can find some success there. And of course, that brings us to our Final Four, which is as chalky as it gets. Well, almost as chalky as it gets. I have Auburn versus Florida and Duke versus Gonzaga. Let's get into that. All right, Final Four. We have Auburn versus Florida. Now, this is going to be a really good game, but I genuinely do believe that this game is going to come down to a lot of things. But I think Florida is just a more balanced team here, and I think they get it done. These two teams are very familiar with each other, both coming out of the SEC, but Florida has so much momentum coming into this game. And when you look at the matchups here, I think Florida and Auburn's offenses are very similar, but Florida's defense is levels above that of Auburn. I think if you look at how Florida likes to typically score, I think they're going to find a lot of success in the two spots that Auburn are weak in, which is their boards and free throws. Auburn ranked 243 in how many free throws they give up. Florida is going to get to the line. They're not that great of a free throw shooting team, but they are going to find some success to get some free points there. They're a team that shoots a lot of threes. Obviously, Auburn an elite three-point defense, elite paint defense as well. But on the offensive glass, Florida top 30, Auburn top 70. I do think Florida is going to find some success here. I think they just have way too many weapons, and the way that they're playing, I feel like they believe in their head that they can beat anyone that tries to stop them. Auburn, they're a very balanced team. They like to shoot everything. Again, Florida top 5 three-point defense, top 3 near basket defense, solid mid-range defense. But the biggest difference here is they're even better on their own boards. They foul a lot less, and they also turn the ball over, maybe just only slightly more than Auburn does. But I think at the end of the day, these two teams are extremely well matched. I'm going to take the team here that's going to get a lot more of the free points, which are offensive boards, and free throws, which I think is going to be the difference between this game. I have this as a really tight match, but I have Florida 79, Auburn 77. I think Florida moves on to the championship game. Duke versus Gonzaga. I love this Gonzaga team, but if Duke's healthy, they are the best team in college basketball. I think Duke handedly beats Gonzaga team. I think Duke plays a much easier style of basketball. I think Gonzaga is going to be gassed at this point. They're still going to be motivated, but Duke has way too much talent. They have the better coach. I think when a push comes to shove here, Duke has that mentality. I think they're going to completely crush Gonzaga by like 8 points here. They've just been so good, especially on the offensive glass. Best offense in college basketball. They're going to find a ton of success in the paint, a ton of success in the mid-range, dominate the boards, get a lot of free throws. They're going to find success. On the other side, Gonzaga, they're a team that really relies on shooting in the paint, getting offensive boards. Duke, an elite team at limiting offensive boards. They don't foul you at all. Third best in college basketball, so Gonzaga is not going to be able to utilize their elite free throw shooting team that much. They like to shoot a lot of mid-range, elite defense. The only thing that Duke defends poorly is the three-point shot, where they're only a top 30. But Gonzaga does not shoot nearly as many threes as most other teams. So give me Duke here to beat and crush this Gonzaga's dream of winning it all. And to end it all off, I'm going to take Florida. I do genuinely believe that the injury to Flag is going to be super important. I just can't reliably take Duke. I think Florida without Cooper Flag playing at 100% is going to be too much of a team here. Florida is ranked number 1 in playing elite teams in all of college basketball. They have some of the most impressive wins. They're a balanced team. Eye test, they just look so good, man. Like Duke, when they're healthy, also looks elite, but I feel like they had a much easier pathway in their conference tournament than Florida did. Yeah, just give me Florida here. I think this is going to be a really fun game to watch, much better than last year's where UConn, I would say, pretty handily beat Purdue. But I love this matchup. I think it's going to be really tight. I have this model as a 1-point win for Florida, but I do think the consistency in Florida's game and the fact that they're maybe a slightly better team in forcing turnovers is going to make this a tight game. But again, I think momentum, consistency, faster pace is going to be enough here. I think the SEC defeats the ACC and comes out ahead in an extremely tight game where Florida wins 77-75. That's my final prediction for this year's bracket. Yeah. If you have any questions, if you want to share your brackets down below, please let me know. Any upsets that you hate, any picks that you have over mine, I'd love to hear them. It's probably my favorite time of the year. Obviously, the odds are I'm going to get shit on in most of these games, like every year. You can only do so much data. You don't know how teams are going to show up in these games. So I love this spot here, though. Give me Florida to win it all. And, yeah, I will see you guys all tomorrow.